A vein had burst in her head. Her right eye was severely damaged, and her brain was filling with blood. And she was in a coma now. The best outcome given by the doctors, if not death, was going to be that she would be a vegetable for the rest of her life. Then she had an inexplicable experience with Padre Pio. If you're new to our channel, then please subscribe to our channel. We would love to have you on board. If you subscribe and you click the bell, you will receive reminders of future videos that we make. A little bit of background to our story. Teresa Sorrentino was from a small town in southern Italy by the name of Cava de' Tirreni. And she was from a devout Catholic family who had a strong devotion to St. Francis of Assisi. Well, in 1972, their family made a pilgrimage to San Giovanni Rotondo. To the town of Padre Pio. There, Teresa could see from the photographs that Padre Pio was a gentle person with a paternal expression. And he was very humble. So although Teresa knew very little about Padre Pio, she felt she could understand Padre Pio and empathize with him. And from then on, she considered Padre Pio to be her protector. Anyway, several years later, Teresa got married and they had 2 children. And then in 1998, so that's not very many years ago, Teresa discovered that she was pregnant. So they were expecting their 3rd child. And Teresa was delighted with this news. She was euphoric. On a Friday morning, this is in May, in 1998, Teresa began to smell a certain perfume in the air, which she could not understand. She went from room to room in her house trying to find the source of the smell. And she noticed later on that even driving in the car, the same smell, the same perfume was there present in the car. She asked others, but no one else could smell this perfume. And the fragrance, she said, lasted until 2 a.m. in the morning. Teresa, of course, she did not make the link between Padre Pio and the perfume. She did not know that this perfume indicated the presence of Padre Pio right there. Well, 2 days later, tragedy struck. And Teresa began to suffer a miscarriage. And she lost her baby in her womb. She phoned the doctor, who said, "Come in quickly for tests." And another day passed, and now Teresa was feeling worse. She was feeling ill. She phoned the doctor again. And while she was on the phone, she started to feel very ill, and she passed out right there. Teresa fell in a dead heap onto the floor. But the telephone receiver, it was one of those old landline systems, slammed right into Teresa's right eye and actually penetrated the eye. And Teresa was rushed to hospital, where they ascertained that actually what had happened is a vein within her brain had burst. The hospital was, however, not equipped for such cases, so she had to be transported to a different hospital. Yet by the time that Teresa had arrived at the other hospital, she was in a very bad state, close to death. She was rushed immediately into the ICU, and she was hooked up to all sorts of IV drips and tubes and everything, the works. She was assigned the best specialist in the hospital, and they did everything they could to save Teresa. Teresa underwent a cerebral drainage, but her situation just got worse. And the CT scan now came through and revealed that there was an aneurysm. This blood clot had lodged in the brain and caused one of the veins to burst. Between the aneurysm and the head trauma from the fall, her brain was now filling with blood. Her condition was considered absolutely critical. And to the doctors, the coma appeared to be irreversible. Basically, there was no hope. If she was lucky enough to come out of the coma, then the prognosis, she would be paralyzed and she would be blind. She would suffer disturbance in her speech and in her thought patterns, in her thinking, i.e., she would actually be very close to a vegetable. However, at this point, something inexplicable happened. And Therese, in fact, went through an out-of-body experience. She felt herself broken free from her body and going down a dark tunnel. Yet at the end of the tunnel, Therese found herself surrounded by a very bright light. And she felt an indescribable peace and happiness. She understood somehow that there were persons, there were beings within this light, although she could not see them. She recognized her father, and she saw her father as a very beautiful figure of light. Somehow they were able to communicate. Now, her father actually died 13 years before of throat cancer. He had done an operation on his throat before he died, and there was a hole in his throat. So, of course, Therese was looking for this hole in her father's throat. She saw there was no hole, and her dad explained to her that where he was now, where they were now, there were no physical anomalies. And Therese noticed someone else. She recognized him as the son of a friend of hers who had actually died when he was 18 years of age. That was several years back. And her father said this other person wanted to give Therese an important message, an urgent message, in fact, that she was to take back to this other person's family. So, up to this point, it is possible that Therese had been in a dream, or that it was totally imaginary. But from now on, you'll see it's different. Because this other person gave Therese details, personal details, private details, that there's no ways she could actually have dreamed up. He explained to Therese that there was a letter kept in an antique piece of furniture in her friend's house, and that she needed to find this letter and give it to the family. So this is a real letter we're talking about. And he described to her the exact piece of furniture in which the letter was, and where it was in the family's house, and in fact in which drawer it was in the desk, and that it was in a maroon-covered notebook. So he described all of this to her. And as it turned out later, this is exactly how it was. So Therese could not have simply dreamed up these details. She did not know the particular ins and outs of the house, and that where the books were, all sorts of things like that. Therese's explanation, or the reason she gives, is that she was given this revelation so that she would know afterwards and be certain afterwards that she had not in fact been dreaming, that it had really happened. Well, her father continued talking and told her that during Therese's horrible misfortune with the miscarriage and what had happened thereafter, that she had been in fact protected by Padre Pio. And he explained that the perfume that she had smelled a few days prior to her accident was that of the saint. Finally, her father said to Therese, Padre Pio will heal you without any consequences. But now her father instructed her that she must return to her earthly life. However, Teresa did not want to go back to her earthly life, because this place, there was such peace and such immense happiness. She was perfectly happy here. However, the father insisted that Padre Pio wanted her to return to her family. And then she remembered her children. She had 2 small children, and of course she had to return. So she returned back through this dark tunnel. Now, back in the hospital, Therese was in a coma for 7 days. And her mom and family were by her side all this time. At one point, her mom smelled a strong perfume in the room. And she asked the others if they could smell the perfume too. They couldn't. Then she realized that it was something of significance, and it must signify the presence of Padre Pio, and that it must be a sign from heaven. She started to shout out with joy that it was the perfume of Padre Pio. And this meant, of course, that her daughter would soon be coming out of her coma. Doctors thought that she was completely nuts, a little bit crazy at least, hysterical or something like that, and tried to calm her down. Well, 1 hour later, Teresa awoke. And usually when a person comes out of a coma, they are at least very confused what's going on. But Teresa woke and she was completely lucid. And she looked and she recognized her mom and in a clear voice cried out, "Mama!" And the day she had returned was? It was May the 25th, which is Padre Pio's birthday. So Teresa's now out of a coma, but she still had the aneurysm in her brain, the vein that had burst in her brain. So she needed a further operation. She was sent to Rome for this operation. And it was a very difficult operation. In fact, it turned out that the vein had burst in 4 different places. But the operation went as Padre Pio had promised. It went very well with no consequences. Further to this, her eye, which the telephone receiver had actually smashed when she fell, the oculist or eye specialist told her that she would lose at least half of the vision, within her eye. This was after the eye exam. Yet mysteriously, her eye recovered completely. Shortly thereafter, Teresa was able to resume her teaching post at the university. The doctors considered this whole incident to be a miracle of nature. That's how they put it. Well, Teresa knew that she owes everything to Padre Pio. Teresa joined a Padre Pio prayer group in the area and dedicates every moment of her free time to giving this testimony of hers.
In nome del Padre, del Figliolo e dello Spirito Santo, e così sia. Sia lodato Gesù e Maria, e
If you are new to our channel, then please, we'd love to have you on board with our channel. Feel free, subscribe to our channel, click the subscribe button below, and after that a little reminder bell will pop up. Click on the reminder and you will receive notifications from YouTube of all future videos we make. And we would also appreciate it if you would click the thumbs up. That is the like button, because that helps us in our YouTube ratings. Further to this, we'd like to put your name into our Friday Mass Prayer Intentions list for the protected children of Padre Pio. That will be this coming Friday. And for that, just click the word "see more" below and you'll see a description of exactly how to do that. It involves basically going to our website. Now, this whole incident comes from the book The Amazing Miracles of Padre Pio, and that is by Frank Rega, who is in fact a Third Order Franciscan, and he's an author of several books on Catholic saints and mystics.